Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down, it's on the screen behind me. WandaVision. It's the show that has just taken over like my entire life in the last week, man. Show is so good. I've now watched it like 5, maybe 6 times through. It's like anytime I don't know what to put on TV, I'm just like, you know what? Let me throw WandaVision on again, and because it's easy to rewatch, and I'm just fascinated by this mystery, and I feel like I've got some working theories that I threw out there during the non-spoiler spoiler reviews when I dropped those on Friday, and those come right after watching the show once. So now, at all the more times I've watched it, I've got written notes. I went old school. I think I've got some working theories that I want to get out there before we get into episode 3 tomorrow. So why don't you pull up a chair, man? Take a seat. We are getting ready to theorize the crap out of what might be going on in WandaVision. Now, as we know in the 2 episodes that we've seen, and also, like, by the way, spoilers, right? Like, if you're here for the theories, I'm going to spoil the crap out of things that we've seen in the episodes and things that are going on. But based on what I've seen and what I know, like I mentioned in my, spoiler review about the House of M, if that's the storyline that they're doing, we know that Wanda's had some sort of mental break that has led to this altered reality that she is in. It seems like that is closed off. It's not the entire reality. It just seems that it's sectioned based on what we've seen in the trailers and the fact that, like, you can hear Jimmy Woo trying to contact her in the show. And because we know it's whatever this is, whatever this, sitcom world is, Wanda has created that as a mask for trying to deal with some of the trauma that she's gone through. Wanda's entire MCU run has been littered with, pain and terrible things. She lost her family. She lost her brother. She, lost most of her life when she was experimented on. She loses her love. She loses herself. She comes back. Like, all these terrible things that have happened to Wanda, have created some sort of a mental break. The question is why are people like Jimmy Woo trying to contact her? Why does it feel like there are more than just Wanda and random people that she either created or, took control over in this reality? What's really going on? I've got 2 working theories on that front. And the first, I thought, was the more out there one, but the more that I've kind of run through it in my head, the more that it kind of makes sense to me. And that's that following Endgame, at some point, Wanda either, maybe has some sort of minor mental break where she does something that she doesn't understand, and she decides she wants to figure out, like, exactly what her power set is and how to control all of her powers. That's the one thing that we don't know. All we know is that she seems to be able to, manipulate objects, and move things around or contain things. But we don't really know what her full power set is, and it seems like it's pretty powerful based on what we've seen in, Infinity War and Endgame. So maybe she goes home to Sokovia. Maybe she's either looking for or just comes across, or, she tries to go home to figure things out, and maybe he finds out that she's there and finds her. But somehow, Wanda and Baron von Strucker get together somewhere in Sokovia, and Wanda, asks him questions so she can figure things out. And maybe he offers to bring her in to his new installation, not Hydra anymore. He has AIM. I think AIM could be coming in this show. Maybe the Beekeeper outfit. The more I've watched the episode and you see that Beekeeper, I'm like, does look an awful lot like from a distance like an AIM suit. Maybe that's a hint that that's what's coming. And Strucker created AIM. 2 branches of Hydra that he had created. One of them was AIM. So maybe via AIM and Strucker, Wanda starts to try to figure out what her power set is. And maybe as that's happening, Strucker realizes what's going on, and maybe coaxes her into learning how to create new realities, and then to just make herself happy, create her own reality. And maybe in doing so, they come up with this idea to create this town or whatever. And in that process of just altering the reality or creating whatever this world is, Wanda loses control and does more than she thinks she's doing. But maybe inside that town, there are some regular people, somewhere maybe in Sokovia, and maybe there's a bunch of Hydra agents in there, or AIM agents, inside with Wanda, with a mission to try to coax her into creating children. Something about, the Strucker watch sequence that we've seen in the commercial, where it says, he'll make time for you. That's what, the more I've thought about that, I'm like, maybe this whole idea of, him making time for Wanda leads to the creation of this reality, and what he ultimately wants is children. If she can create children, he can take those children, much like I said in my spoiler review, and then start to experiment on them to create another version of Pietro and Wanda. So maybe some form of that is going on, where this is a Strucker thing. Maybe he's the outside influence, like Pietro was in House of M, to creating the reality where everybody gets whatever they want. Maybe Strucker is the one kind of pulling the strings in the background, helping Wanda create whatever reality it was he wanted, to hopefully get her to just manifest something. And I also feel like the Mind Stone has something to do with this, right? When she destroyed it the first time, maybe some sort of that power mixed with hers and changed something. But it clearly seems like she's got some form of way of taking over minds or wiping minds, right? Vision, we've seen him touch Agnes's head in the trailers, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're an Avenger. Are you here to save us?" And it's one of those one, he was created by Wanda, so that's Wanda. So if she has any control over that power set, maybe that's in there. I don't know. Maybe that's why everyone doesn't really know what's going on. You're getting these kind of breaks in reality. And while Strucker's created that, maybe there was a sword agent, that was following her. This idea of the sentient weapon observation. And maybe that sword agent is Monica Rambeau. Maybe she got pulled into this whole creation of reality when that was created, and that's why she's inside and doesn't know who she is. And because of that, Sword knew enough of where she went off that they've figured out where this thing is, and maybe that's why they're trying to infiltrate, right? We've seen a helicopter try to come in. We've seen the Beekeeper try to come in, both with Sword, logos on them. And maybe that's why they're trying to be like, "Hey, Wanda, who's doing this to you?" The flip side of that coin is that maybe Wanda goes to Fury after Endgame, and they start working with her on things and realize that she can do these things. And while she's doing that, maybe Strucker's just been looking for her this whole time, and, comes across the fact that she's got the ability to alter reality. And, somehow gets people inside of whatever it is that Sword is doing with this thing. And maybe during that, Wanda has a break that wipes all of the minds, and now she's changed whatever it was Sword was working on. And maybe some Hydra agents have infiltrated, or AIM agents have infiltrated whatever Sword was doing. And Wanda now has shut everybody out. And that's why Sword, or at least Jimmy Woo, after watching it 5-6 times, that's definitely his voice, or trying to contact her, "Wanda, what happened? Why, who's doing this to you? Why did whatever it was we were doing suddenly change?" And then still, I think Strucker is trying to get her to manifest children, and so that he can take them. That I think, of all the theories I've got after just 2 episodes, somehow Strucker is tied into whatever it is Wanda's got going on with the kids. But either way, it's either Strucker's the one that led to whatever this was, or Sword led to whatever this is. And somehow we have both, agents for Strucker and agents for Sword, or at least one agent for Sword inside with Monica Rambeau. The one thing that none of them know, whether it's Sword or Hydra, AIM, Strucker, we know that they don't know, is the more that she, at least going by the comics, the more that she alters or changes reality, the less control she has over her powers. And as you can see, I wrote some notes. Wanda has actually altered reality, aside from the changing of the sitcom era decades, 12 times just in the first 2 episodes. We get 4 in the first, and 8 in the second. So the first thing that we see that is some sort of reality changing is the putting of the plate back together, right? We know that Wanda's power set allows her to manipulate objects in the air, move them around. We've seen her do that against Thanos, and in Civil War when she manipulates the bomb and can contain things. So we know she can do that, maybe some sort of like force field type stuff. But outside of that, that's all that we've seen her do. That's all that we know that she knows how to do. So anything outside of that is reality altering. So the first time is the putting of the plate back together after it breaks on Vision's head. The second time comes at the dinner party, right, where she just suddenly changes her wardrobe from the sexy thing she had on for Vision for appropriate clothing for a dinner party with your husband's boss. Then the third thing is, at dinner itself, when she's prepping everything and she first fast forwards the chicken so that it's cooked and it's too much, and then rewinds it, much like she does with the beekeeper later on in episode 2, and rewinds it to too far where they're now eggs again. And of course that leads to the first kind of moment where we see Wanda maybe losing control of it, or being influenced by something from the outside. If indeed, an AIM or Hydra agents are the ones kind of pushing the baby thing, maybe that's Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Maybe they're on the inside of this, something that they're pushing. And the more Mr. Hart pushes on her, all of a sudden it kind of pushes her to a break. And the other thing, too, is we know that Vision is a for sure created thing. Like, he's dead, so she had to create that. The other people seem to be either trapped or, like I said, like volunteered, are actually inside. So for me, it's like maybe Vision and herself are like, obviously the same thing. And maybe Vision is more of the good in Wanda, and maybe Wanda has more of, the negative side of her. But it seems like the more Mr. Hart pushes, it almost seems like Wanda has a snap where it's like reality just like, I'd kill you if I could right now. And that's where she kind of loses control to the point where something happens that she's not in control of. Mr. Hart starts choking. And it kind of breaks that whole reality, right? Like, you see Mrs. Hart just kind of go, stop it, ha 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 ha, stop it, it's not funny, ha ha. But like, she never gets out of that. Like, for actual, like when he falls over, there's no concern. She keeps laughing. And it's just like, stop it, you're not funny. And it's like that whole element breaks. And Vision literally looks at Wanda like twice. They show him like, almost like, tell me what you want me to do here. And then Wanda finally kind of comes back and is like, help him, Vision, and then he saves him. But it's kind of the first moment where it's like something out of her control starts happening, and then something bad happens. We see that happen later on in episode 2, which we'll get to with Dottie. When she the Jimmy Woo is coming through the radio, all of a sudden that's something out of her control, and everybody just kind of freezes, and then when it explodes and snaps him back, that crushing of the glass cuts Dottie's hand, and all of a sudden the blood is red, which is one of those other things. I think things outside of Wanda's control, or that are happening without her being in control of them happening, ties into the color that we're starting to see. But after the Hearts go home, the fourth and final thing we see her reality alter in episode 1 is the creation of the rings, where they just appear on their hands, which is a wonderful moment. That whole moment is wonderful, but I think that changing in reality is leading to less wonderful things. And as we move to episode 2, the fifth thing is right at the top of the episode. She slides the beds together, which is normal powers, but then seemingly turns it into a king-size bed, which would be, changing the reality again. So there's your fifth moment. The sixth time is the helicopter. Now, this one's kind of weird because it clearly is altering reality. I think that's a real helicopter that becomes a toy, and I think that's almost like a defense mechanism for Wanda. Something trying to come in and stop whatever it is she's doing turns it into a toy. But that's also something that is completely out of her control. Something entering this world is outside of her control, and maybe, subconsciously, she's able to change that right away and make it a part of her reality. But breaking through and being out of her control is the first instance of that color we see, the red and gold. And then, like I said, much like Dottie's hand, that that glass breaking, something out of her control, and it leads to red blood, which again, not in her control, color appears. After the helicopter, and after Dottie's hand is bleeding, we get to the seventh time that she actually changes reality by creating a pulley system that was not there previously to make Vision look like he's being pulled up by a pulley and not just actually floating or flying. Then you have the turning the piano into the cardboard cutout, the mirrors that appear backstage, and then Geraldine being inside the box, which brings us to a total of 10 times we've seen her change reality. When you get to the 11th, that's toward the end of the episode, and that's again, Sword trying to infiltrate, and it's the Beekeeper. Now, I don't know if the Beekeeper is, a nod to the character Swarm, or if that is Swarm or some version of him, like maybe Swarm tried to come in and Wanda changed him into a Beekeeper, or it's just a nod to like the style of the AIM outfits without it being an AIM outfit, and that Sword agent became a Beekeeper when he came in. Maybe he had regular tactical gear on, and when he comes in, now he's got something different, much like the helicopter. Instead of turning him into a toy, it turns him into a Beekeeper. But when Wanda rewinds so that doesn't happen, that's now your 11th time that she's changed reality in the show, and the 12th and final time is the pregnancy, which seems to be kind of out of her control. It again feels like all those outside forces, the pushing that Mr. Hart did that led to him choking, the Jimmy Woo trying to get through that leads to the glass breaking, the helicopter trying to come in that she has no control over. It seems like all of the talk of for the children, why don't you have kids, you should have kids, has seeped into Wanda's mind to the point where, without her knowing it, she has manifested a full-on pregnancy for what will be twins. And right after she does that, what happens to the world? Everything turns to color. And I think, like I said, the actual manifestation of the pregnancy, maybe not in Wanda's control, even if it is her doing. And that's just another sign of her losing her grip on her powers and on this reality. And as everything turns to color, for me, that's just a hint that things are only going to get crazier. And the other fun thing, too, when you're looking at these episodes, are those two commercials. I mentioned in my spoiler review that I thought they were hinting to things that could be inside of this world, or things that we will see come. The red and yellow helicopter seems a lot like the Iron Man costume or colors, or armor, not costume. And that first commercial, Stark Industries. Maybe Stark Industries is tied to Sword. Maybe they're helping create, things for Sword to use. I'm thinking that Sword has primarily been out in space, in that space station that we saw Fury on, and when he comes home, maybe he's like, we need to adapt this down here. Like Wanda's, maybe Wanda has a little bit of a break, does something too powerful that's out of her control while Fury's home, and he goes, look, we've got to change this. Maybe he goes to Pepper, and maybe that's what's going on there. Then the second commercial, obviously the Strucker watch, he's always, he'll always make time for you. Like I said, is kind of a nod to the fact that Strucker and Hydra / AIM could be inside of the show and a big presence. But talking to my good buddy, I can't even take credit for this one, my good buddy Kieran, who's an even bigger comic book nerd than I am, he was like, yeah, man, that makes sense. But also, those are representative to of the traumas of Wanda's life. When they turn the toaster on, that power up noise you hear, you have to really crank the volume. When you watch something 5-6 times, you do things like that, and you actually hear the sound of the Iron Man suit turning on. And then the beeping noise and the red light flashing is kind of like the noise that a bomb would make. Stark, bomb, it doesn't explode, the toast just comes out. Undetonated bomb, that ties back to Wanda's actual MCU origin story. And Stark's bombs being responsible for the first traumatic things to happen to Wanda and Pietro. And then the second thing is Strucker taking them and experimenting with them. So having the watch in there and Strucker also hints to that. So I think these commercials definitely are hinting at things from Wanda's past, for sure. After he said that, I was like, oh, wow, dude, that makes so much more sense. But maybe they are kind of like a double-edged sword, where they're also telling you things that we could be seeing enter the show or the MCU. And like I said, I think all of that just kind of ties into those two working theories that I've created, both stemming from those commercials. So I'm really hoping that those commercials are both hinting from the past and the future, so that hopefully my theories are kind of on track. And like I said, no matter what the theory is, it seems like you have some sort of Strucker agent, whether it's Hydra or Sword, Hydra or AIM, and you obviously have Geraldine, who's Monica Rambeau as a Sword agent, and Sword trying to kind of infiltrate. And what it seems like is Hydra, if they're there, or AIM, if they're there, are already inside, maybe. And it seems like Sword is trying to come from the outside. Like I said, if Strucker is trying to get these kids, Dottie asking her about children and all the for the children stuff, with all of the women from that group that she kind of runs. The Hearts, maybe even Agnes. It's one of those things where it's like, maybe Agnes is Agatha Harkness, or maybe Agnes is, someone working for Strucker. It is interesting that the name Wentworth is behind, is the department store that's behind everybody at the talent show. When you're seeing the audience, Wentworth's is behind, and that could be hinting at Deirdre Wentworth, who's a character from, ironically, a different Earth 616, and there she was part of the Dark Avengers, but she was also an AIM agent. So again, another hint to AIM. Maybe that's who Agnes is. So it could go either way. That's why I feel like there's things about Agnes where it's like it could be Harkness or maybe not. But all those people pushing or bringing up kids or pregnancy, if they're working for Strucker, then the people trying to get in, Jimmy Woo, the helicopter, the beekeeper, and they all have the Sword gear, or at least symbols on. It seems like Sword is trying to penetrate. That's why it makes me think the Strucker theory maybe is the more likely one. But it could be the other way around too. But either way, I think in some facet, these groups are the ones that are kind of trying to get to Wanda, trying to make things happen that are out of Wanda's control. And the more that she starts to just do things, I think the more unhinged she will become. I don't know if she'll be violently unhinged through the episodes, but I think we'll start to see that break coming, because I think she's going to be the villain that leads us to the multiverse of madness. And one of the other things that I think could be happening here too is every time she does change reality, maybe that creates some sort of an offshoot, much like, when you had the Sorcerer Supreme talking to Hulk, and it's like, if you take this time stone, it creates this other reality that could lead to all sorts of darkness and terrible things. Maybe every time she's doing things, to this point 12 times that we've seen, maybe that's creating offspring realities or offspring universes. And maybe by the time we get to, multiverse of madness, those universes or realities are collapsing in on this one, and that's what's all of a sudden bringing the Spider-Man around and bringing all these other characters from the past back, to the point where I think we could even see Quicksilver. We could see Pietro come back either in this show or in Multiverse of Madness. Either way, I think we're all going to see those things kind of tie together, where I think there's something going on with Hydra, AIM, Strucker, and then I think the realities or multiple universes are actually being created by Wanda. So there you go, man. Those are all my theories on WandaVision just through 2 episodes. I hope I'm on the right track, because I would love to be right about this, because I love this show so much. If it keeps at this level of quality or gets better as the season progresses, this is going to be one of the best things that Marvel's ever done. And like I said, it's just nonstop. It's just always running in my brain, and I cannot wait, in a mere 12 plus hours or so, getting to watch the next episode of WandaVision. So there you go, man. Those are all my theories and thoughts through the first 2 episodes. Now I want to know what you're thinking. Have you created any theories? Are you a comic book nerd? Do you know the history where you can kind of get deep in on some of the things that could be going on? If you're not, and you're just watching, the MCU, that you're into Marvel, what kind of theories are you pulling off of just what we've seen? Anything you're thinking theory-wise, or what might actually be going on, or what is happening, or where the show could lead to, goes down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man the whole run of WandaVision to see if he's right, wrong, on somewhere in the ballpark or vicinity, or just anything with TV, movies, trailers, and you haven't yet, and you want to come, hang out, you like what I'm doing over here, come be part of the crew, man. We got a crew. We got the C-Maniacs, man. You can come be part of the C-Maniacs and C-Maniac Nation by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell for alerts, and until next time for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down. I'll be talking to you real soon about more WandaVision, but until then, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace! Well, as I live and breathe, you still here? Check out a video like this one, or this one, and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the C-Man's got at the Cinema Sit Down.